One of the priorities for us in the city is to support our children and young people, as we know they're experiencing or have experienced levels of trauma and adversity. So clearly it's important that we work with our schools and support them to be trauma-informed and trauma-responsive. This film will demonstrate some of the practical strategies and techniques that our schools are using to support their children in a trauma-informed way.
Corpus Christi is a multi-academy trust in Manchester. In Manchester, we've got one high school, which is St Paul's, and we've got 3 primary schools, St Elizabeth's, St Anthony's, and St John Fisher and Thomas More. All these schools have implemented a trauma-informed approach. The reason why our trust decided to incorporate trauma-informed practice, we were aware in Manchester that there was already a significant amount of trauma within our community that our families were experiencing. And then we started getting data that there'd been a significant increase in the level of domestic violence in homes within an area which was already higher than national average. And then we looked at the other factors and we knew that families were being impacted by poverty, that parents had worries about employment, and that we needed to do something to address these problems. We decided it was important to work in this way because children feeling happy and secure in school will mean that they're in a place of readiness in terms of their learning. So if our young people and children come into our schools and they're emotionally dysregulated and they're upset, there's been a big event in their lives that they're thinking about, then they're not going to be ready to learn. So we felt it was really important to address these underlying issues as a priority before even beginning to think about their education. In terms of what we implemented, we started by looking at a programme of CPD for our staff on trauma-informed practice. We worked very closely with some key professionals within our organisation, such as our special educational need coordinators, and we appointed a member of staff to lead on this initiative.
So the challenges initially was the fact that everybody was coming from a different point of view. Everybody was coming from a different starting point, so it was trying to create that shared vision and ethos of what it would look like and how we incorporate it as well. So the first steps was focusing on the senior leaders and the directors kind of knowing what trauma-informed was and having a vision, and then it was incorporate that into whole staff training for starting with senior leaders, governors, directors, to then work into a whole staff approach, working with staff to model and coach of what that would look like in the classrooms as well. So the training incorporates things like child development, a child's emotional brain, how trauma impacts on a brain, how kind of childhood experiences impact, and then how kind of we support young people who might be emotionally dysregulated or who might need that additional support with their emotional health and well-being. So we tackle it by, one of the key things is relationships, so having really positive relationships with everybody. We focus on our routines in school and classroom to make young people feel safe. We also focus on responses, so if a young person is dysregulated and needs additional support, how do we respond as an adult to ensure that they feel safe and to support them with their emotional regulation? With regards to policies, we've completely amended our behaviour policies across the trust. We're also focusing on a relationship policy that kind of informs us on kind of best practice with how to interact with everybody who comes into our school environment. With regards to procedures and practices that we use, we've focused on an enrichment curriculum. Our personal development across the trust has improved, so we're focusing on developing the whole child now.
So in terms of support for the children who've experienced trauma, we have a forest school available at one of our partner schools that we visit wherever we need to. We can refer children to visit on a weekly basis or on a more long-term basis. And we have Arlo, the therapy dog, who comes into school and he's available for children to stroke and spend a bit of time with. And we know that it rapidly decreases children's cortisol levels when they're spending time with the dog. In the forest school, some of the activities include wood whittling, climbing and hiding activities, mud kitchen, different craft activities outside, gardening, and it helps the children develop resilience, encourage them to take part in activities they wouldn't usually get to experience, and throw themselves into unexpected situations. The major benefit for the children is to develop their confidence and resilience and encourage them to believe in themselves and have a go at something, even if it's something new and unexpected.
So we've seen significant kind of increases with regards to students' emotional development when they've taken part in the therapeutic interventions. So quite a few of our parents have said that they've seen a significant improvement in behaviour at home, in children's sleep at home, kind of their emotional regulation. So it's made a really big impact for some of our families, and the parents have given us really, really positive feedback on that.
When I was in year 4, I didn't really like coming to school because I felt sad. There was no one to talk to, but then Selena came in because my nana sadly passed, and then she kind of just helped me through it. So we used to feel like a 6 out of 10 because I had no one to talk to really, but now I feel like a 10 out of 10. And I love coming to school now, and I love doing all the lessons, and I don't have to worry about anything because I know all the teachers and all my friends are there for me.
So one of the biggest impacts we've seen is regards to rates of suspensions. Suspension rates and exclusions rates have dropped significantly. We've also seen an increase in attendance for individual pupils and groups of pupils. And, we end up with communities and environments that feel really calm. We create a culture of calm and positive atmosphere so that young people are ready to learn, and they've got trusted adults that they can kind of interact with throughout the day as well.
So as part of our trauma-informed approach at school, we set up these therapy sessions to allow the students to come together, to meet with key staff, to share their opinions, to share their thoughts, so that we can then act on that pupil voice to make the changes that we need to in school if we need to, and to give them their freedom and their time and the space to be able to be listened to and heard. We spend a lot of the time trying to do our therapy sessions as group sessions for pupil voice, to get them all together regularly, to get their feedback, to discuss the current provisions in school, the support that's on offer. So they talk about the staff at school, how things are set up, they talk about what's in place, they talk about how they feel, and any changes that they feel will benefit themselves and their peers. So they're really valuable sessions for the children and for the staff.
The journey, like any journey, takes time because it's about changing people's hearts and minds. And for trauma-informed practice to be successful, every single member of staff has to buy into the belief that this is a key priority for the children and young people in their schools. For some members of staff, it's a completely different way of teaching and completely different in terms of their relationships with young people. So we have many kind of traditional behaviour management strategies, and what we're saying to staff is we would like you to change your approach. You may have done this for 10, 15, 20 years, but when a child's dysregulated, we want you to first of all listen to what they have to say and don't worry about the lesson but focus on the individual. It takes time and it takes coaching, and then you reach that moment where staff realise this approach works, and that's when it's really worthwhile.
My experience has been that I feel much more confident now in speaking to children about traumatic experiences and supporting the parents the best that I can. I also feel like it's helped the teachers understand that we are a small part in the child's life, even though a very important one, and we need to support the whole child. If they can't be happy in themselves, they will not access the learning anyway, so we need to look at the child first before we can address any learning needs.
So with regards to kind of the overall impact, I would really recommend trauma-informed approaches across organisations, because what we're seeing is an improvement in staff retention, staff recruitment, we're seeing an overall happier community. And although it takes a little bit of time to kind of get it incorporated across your workplace, we definitely see improvements overall. And with regards to the climate with emotional health and wellbeing across the UK at the minute, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer really to try and incorporate what's going to be best practice for everybody.